Roar Zone in Marietta. We got Brooklyn in the house. I'm from the East Coast, so right away, I knew we were going to connect just from her name, right?
East Coast.
And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. That a girl. And I know we met at a keynote that I did up in Corona, and we all have a story. That's what got us here, and because we were bad enough to make it through, now it's our obligation to share it. So what we do here is we're going to take them behind that black curtain. We're going to share where you came from, where you're at today, and where you see yourself going. My job, I'm just going to pour out those gold nuggets. Deal?
Awesome.
Cool.
I love it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. So, where did it all start? Where are you from? Where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Ventura, California.
Okay.
It's actually a little bit south of Santa Barbara.
Okay.
I spent most of my life in Santa Barbara, even as a child, and went to college out there.
Okay.
I went to college also out of state, but the career that I'm in now is I went to Santa Barbara Cosmetology Academy.
Okay.
So I spent most of my life up in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
So that's where I built my roots, and my business roots was in Santa Barbara, but born and raised in Ventura.
Okay. How was your childhood?
It was rough.
Okay. All right.
To say the least.
All right.
I came from a broken home, and I came from a very detrimental background. My mother died of breast cancer when I was 3.
Okay.
And my younger sister was 1, and my eldest sister was 6 at the time. So there was 3 of us.
Okay. Do you feel like that made you closer?
Oh, yeah. I mean, of course, we felt like as we turned 18 and most of them got married, or I started dating and into our adulthood, we all, as women and young men, we all seasoned to become young adults, and we all lead our own lives. And I think that naturally kind of separated us. And not only that, but they're not local anymore. All their husbands stole them and took them out of state.
They captured
So I'm here by myself.
Okay. So you do have family here, though?
Actually, up in Santa Barbara area still, in Ventura.
Okay.
But because of what happened when I was a child, I think like my sisters and I have stayed pretty close throughout the years, and casually stayed tied close to our families. But my grandparents, they've all passed away, and uncles and aunts are nowhere near, and they've passed, and we don't. My mother, who died of breast cancer, never had siblings, so I don't have aunts and uncles. So it's very, very limited.
Okay.
To say the least.
So who raised you?
My grandparents helped out. My dad actually got remarried to another woman who was part of the reason of how the family broke apart. So we had a stepmother that wasn't in the right mind. And that does happen. So definitely people can relate to my story because they're out there. But he had and made his free agency and his choices, and we all just went and led our own lives. But
you know, I love what you said, though, because it's so important for people. And I was talking about this in a podcast coming up, where I got invited to. I love what you said, because it's so important for people to understand. See, I want to circle that, highlight that, and people can relate. My story, you know, given up for adoption as an infant in a orphanage up until I was 18 months old, right? Left back in the 2nd grade, diagnosed with ADD, said I had learning disorder, never graduated high school. 19, I'm sitting in a jail cell looking at 8 to 10 if things don't go my way. But what happens is I think so many people get so caught up in me, and poor me, and they're in that funk. And I always say, if you want to get out of that funk, it's real easy, right? I should say it's simple, not always easy. Go find people, right, that are praying for your problems. And if you're not sure where that is, let me show you. A children's hospital, 12-year-old little girl fighting for her life for cancer, right? And she's the rock of the family. Or that elderly person that the time is done. Doesn't matter how much money they have. Doesn't matter how smart they were. They can't get that time back, you know? So I love that you're starting to share with us what happened, right? That struggle, because I'm a big believer in struggle equals strength all day long, right?
Absolutely.
But not a lot of people say that in the middle of their story. So I wanted to address that. So love that, because you acknowledge it, and that's a powerful place to be.
And I loved speaking about my story, especially when I was a teacher in the cosmetology industry, which I know we'll go back to. When I would be, you know, all mic'd up, and there'd be at least 200-300 people in the audience, and I would talk about that. I would talk about, you know, what you go through, and who you surround yourself is who you become. Always make sure you surround yourself around the people that support you and want to uplift you, because you won't really make it unless And if you put yourself in situations where there's a negativeness to drag you down, you'll never get past that point of poor me, poor me. You know, instead of enlightening yourself and being surrounded, whether it's across the country, across the world, across the globe, wherever you are, you always want to be around somebody who has made it to where you want to be in some aspects, because then you can look up to them, get excited about it, and kind of find little niches about what you can season and change about yourself.
I love it. I love it.
That's very vital.
The old saying, if you're the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? So, yeah, I don't have any issues with that. It's easy for me. But, yeah, you're absolutely right. Let me ask you this. Did it come natural to you to get on stage and speak? Because so many people are terrified of that as well. And it maps to a lot of things that I talk about is the fear barriers. But did it come natural to you, or is it something you had to acquire?
I think more so, yes. I mean, we all are born with talents. And I think that's where it comes from. But there's a reason for that. Because everyone has a divine order, and everyone has a divine assignment, I feel. Whether it's a religious basis or just good energy or a place at the right time. I did have to grow into it a little bit, but being able to, be the top of my class in cosmetology school, and I was my teacher's favorite. I even lived with my teacher.
There you go.
She kind of adopted me too when I first graduated. I was blessed at a young age to find out what I love, because I know that there are so many adults in their 40s and their 50s and 60s that are at a great career and have retirement or whatever, but they are so unhappy, or they wish that they could do something else, and I was grateful. Yes, I've had so many stumps along the way, but what's so great is my heart and my soul is usually very complete all the time in the sense of my career and what I do for other people. So I'm blessed to have had that I knew when I was a little girl that I wanted to be in the beauty and fashion industry.
You
but
just
I
knew
didn't.
from day one.
I
Right.
did at a very young age, and my grandmother saw that, and my sisters saw that, and they all thought I was weird because my other sister became a police officer, and then she taught at the police academy, and she met someone who was in the police force, and then my other sister did insurance company and nursing, and it was just like, who are you? My father didn't talk at all about our mother. It was too painful for him. So come to find out in the garage going through boxes and just all kind of talking to ladies who knew her, she had a nail shop. And she was a nail technician, and she actually was in the Sears catalog. I found it actually of her being a model in baby clothes.
Wow.
So for Sears catalog, she was a model back in the day, and then she started sketching clothing for sketching and designing.
So how old were you when you found all this out?
I was probably, I knew I was before 15, 16 years old. I know that.
And that
It was
helped
early.
confirm, like,
It
man,
did.
why do I feel so compelled?
Like artistic. Why do I feel artistic?
Right.
And my sisters have her look, but I have her personality.
But and you have her passion. You have that DNA, right? I just did a keynote last week up in Ontario, and I was on a board after, and they were asking questions. They said, "Is there anything you regret in life?" And I don't know that I'm going to say regret, but one of the things, if I could change it, if I could go back, I don't even know if that's the right word, but I love that. I admire, I should say, the people that found their passion from the beginning, right? Whether it's those kids that are riding skateboards and they have sponsors, whether, the Rob Dyrdeks in life, right? Or whatever that is, they found that. And maybe I didn't have that level of awareness at that time, right? But I did know that I was an entrepreneur. I did know that I didn't fit into school. I hardly even went. So I knew that much, but I love that that you're able to do that. That's a huge gift.
Knowing what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And
huge.
Knowing what I wanted to do at a young age, or what my assignment kind of was probably the biggest blessing.
Yes.
Because I didn't really have a lot of the other access to other things.
Yes, and you stayed on track.
Yeah, I haven't changed my career. I mean, I was a professional nanny for special needs children throughout my life, and really worked with foster care and assistant, like LA County and Orange County.
So how did you get involved with that?
Well, I was nannying since I was 17 years old. I mean, I had worked before then, but that was my first assignment full
Okay.
time. And I had done that, but I was doing hair and makeup for brides. That's actually how I started. I thought of going to fashion design school, and I had this dream, like, I'm going to go to a big city. I'm either going to go to LA or New York.
There you go.
But I had too many connections in LA, and it was, my mom had no brothers or sisters, so I couldn't really just dump myself into New York. I mean, I guess I could, but I felt like I was more of a California girl, an LA girl, and I'm still yearning to get to New York till this day.
You haven't been?
Never been.
Oh,
Yeah, you're like, that's a shame.
you know, but you gotta go. You gotta go.
I know. I've been told by everybody else has been in New York.
Yeah.
All my friends that come across are like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. And if you are a city girl, that's the city.
And you know what's even more cray-cray? Is that my mom was born in Brooklyn, New York. She was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York.
Really?
Those are her roots.
Wow.
So I was like, wait a second.
Was she raised in New York too?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then she came out here as an adult?
Yeah, so at 18, she went to Germany, and she met a gentleman and had a baby, and then she came back to Brooklyn, New York, and then, yeah, from there. But
Wow.
her parents, or my
Yeah.
grandparents, had passed away, actually, on my birthday on July 15th when I was 16 years old, and they were in Dallas at the time, so they had moved to they came from New York, and then came to Ventura to be close to us when we were really little, but just I think with the new dynamics of my father's new marriage and new life, I mean, with my real mom's parents, you know, the dynamic wasn't working, and so they went to Dallas, and I ended up just getting a phone call, and my biological father said, we're gonna go to Dallas and go get her things and say goodbye and just stuff like that. And I was still pretty young, and I didn't understand a lot because I didn't have a relationship with her much, so it was just very black and white.
Yeah, you were kind of like in
Like,
limbo.
what's going on?
Yeah, like in limbo. And then, plus you were young.
I mean, my dad didn't talk much about it. He was
Yeah.
a police officer himself, and he by then he was already remarried. I mean,
Yeah.
when my mother died at 3, he dated somebody and got remarried by the time I was 4.
Yeah.
So it happened really quick. So that whole life was basically erased.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you're a police officer, when you see a lot of negative stuff throughout your day, throughout your week, throughout your world, you tend to, your defense mechanism is to just not talk about it, not
deal with
address
it.
Yeah, and that's, you know, same with the veterans that come back, you know, when you see that kind of stuff over and over. But you got to get out to New York. Yeah, you got to get out to New York. The food is second to none.
So I've heard.
I just was back 3 weeks ago. My family's from Philly. Man, I was everywhere. One day I went from upstate New York to Atlantic City. It was wild. But I knew exactly where, as soon as I landed, because food's very important to me, it always has been. As soon as I landed in Philly, I knew exactly where I was going to stop and where I was going to go. So you got to get out there. It's awesome.
And I've heard over the years a lot of part of New York has changed. I mean, Brooklyn used to not be the same city that Brooklyn is today.
Somebody was just talking about that. How much Brooklyn has changed from back in the day. You know, back in the day, it was
much
hard.
more crime.
Brooklyn was a bigger version of where my mom was born and raised in South Philly, right? Very segregated. So you had Irish, German, Italian, Polish, and you know, just the way it was. That's just. I was born in Norristown, right outside of Philly, and it's the hometown of Tommy Lasorda and Mike Piazza.
The food must have been great.
Oh man,
We're jealous over here,
right? No, it is good stuff. So, how did you like school? How'd you do in school?
Great.
You did?
I was a full-time student. I was smart in one area. People thought, oh, you're going to cosmetology school. But what I wanted to do was I didn't want to pick a school that wouldn't give me units. And I thought about that. I became a makeup artist at MAC back in the day when it was really hard to get that job. I mean, it took me almost a year. And that was almost 20 years ago.
Makeup artist in what?
At MAC. MAC.
Oh, yeah.
MAC.
Okay.
So, which was in Nordstrom's, and now Estee Lauder have bought that company and many other companies. I worked there because my goal was, well, whenever I start cosmetology school, I want to get my grounds on a lot of things because my goal was I'm going to do editorial, film, TV, which I did get a chance to do, but I wanted to create that because I knew cosmetology school was more of a, you know, the NIC state board, just passing your test. It didn't have a lot to do with really teaching how to do the whole art perspective of cutting and coloring and makeup and design and hair pieces and extensions and all the engineering and technology. So I knew that, so I started that, and I still did nanny work at the same time. The school called me, and they said, I put myself on the waiting list, and I was living with my grandma at the time. And I just basically, they called me, they said, well, we have an opening. We have one left, but it's full time. And so I said, I'll take it. I don't know what it was in me. It just happened. I just knew that I had to leave MAC.
It just felt right.
Because they teach you esthetician and manicuring, the whole program. It covers everything, and that was going to be the key for me to become an instructor someday and to be able to take an internship program someday.
And ultimately, that was your passion.
Yeah.
I mean, to know it all and to be able to be very good at all of it. So you listen to that. I call it the inner GPS, right? You listen to that inner GPS, and it moved you in the right direction because you had your own business. Take us into that transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I started school, finished, actually early. I actually did extra credits and graduated one of the first in my class. And I took state board, within the first 90 days, and everything was fly. And it was 5 business days later. I went to I did my research, and I said, where do I want to go to do an internship program? I need to be an assistant, learn my roots, learn the front and the back of the kitchen of business, and start from the beginning while I get paid for it. And I found an Aveda salon that was going to be able to do that, and that was Darren John's studio in Santa Barbara. Wow. And they partnership with Walter Claudio, because Walter Claudio had taught my mentor everything that he knows, so he opened his own salon and then had a schooling system inside the salon. The program was usually a year and a half. I graduated 6 months early, built all my clientele.
How did you do that?
There was 4 of us girls and 1 gentleman that all took the class, and I guess I caught on or just grasped the whole concept. And I was offered a special gift. My mentor came to me, and he saw how I had been doing weddings even before I had a license. And then I kick notch when I went into Aveda, and I would do updos in like 20 minutes. And he just had asked me to go to LA Fashion Week, Mercedes-Benz LA Fashion Week, and work behind stage. And
how was that?
I could still cry to this day. That was insane. I'm just waiting for a moment to go back.
Wow.
But it's not that easy. I mean, you got to be a part of union, or you got to be able to have the connects to be able to facilitate yourself like that. And there's so much more. I mean, there's over 100 different types of careers in the beauty industry. And I was one that was like, I want to get exposed to everything, because it only makes my resume better. It only makes me be able to speak for myself and for others, and to be able to help others, and it only makes yourself feel more confident.
And you love it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Can you tell?
Yeah, I mean, but that's it. But that's when you know you won, right? You love it. At the end of the day, all the other stuff is great, right? But you love it, and that's the energy that you put off, and that's the gift. I love that. I love that energy. So you started your own business.
I did. From Aveda, I just went to another salon, and all my clients followed me, just like that. And I capped out, saved a lot of money. And
so you were in another salon.
Yeah.
So you were renting a
I was
space.
renting a space.
Explain that, because not everyone knows how that works.
Absolutely. So when you work at Aveda or a Paul Mitchell sector salon, or a Vida Sassoon, that's usually commission based. But what I decided to do is I had built myself and built my business, finished my training early. I'm like, I'm ready to fly. I've even been backstage already. Right. I'm like, I'm good. So I literally just moved to another salon to start small and to be smart about it. I wanted to move to rent out a station so I could be my own sole proprietor in my own sector. And that's when I learned how to come up with a business name, go down to the city, make an announcement, put an ad out, start the business, start the taxes, file for the IRS, get a credit card machines, apply for credit cards, do the whole thing, get, business bank accounts all set up.
Now, when was this? How long ago?
This was back in 2004, I think, or 2003 when we started.
Now, when you made that decision and you started to do that, how did you feel?
I wasn't even stressed or nervous. Just
excited.
It just became normal because I needed to take control. And what that comes from is being able to make sure that you're prepared with your education side. Because with your education side and being on the grounds and being on your feet and getting in the dirt a little bit, you'll know when it's the right time to get to the next level.
Right.
I didn't feel that. I felt like, well, all I need to do is call the city. And then all I need to do is just talk to the owner of the salon where I'm going and then go from there, because all the other girls are somewhat doing that same kind of idea. And I just grew from there. And man, I handled all the books, all of the accounting, the money, all the appointments.
Did that part of the business come natural to you, or was that something that was a struggle? Because the reason I ask, right, any business that I get into, I like to reverse engineer. I actually did a video on that today. I have to surround myself with the people that enhance my weaknesses. And the back end, the bookkeeping, the accounting is a nightmare for me. I'd rather have root canal done. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
We don't want to look at numbers.
But when you're that creative person, right?
Yes.
It's so hard. So I know you did what you had to do, but did it come natural, or was it something that you?
The numbers or organizing the numbers didn't necessarily come natural.
Okay, that makes sense.
First time around.
That makes sense.
But I never been questioned or audited. Like I did the smart thing, and I hired a CPA because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing.
That a girl.
So I'm going to spend $300 to $1,000 a year, but write that off, and then learning all the dividends and deductions and learning from the CPA. I thought, I'm talent. I'm going to wear the right hat. I'm not going to put myself in a situation to get myself in trouble on purpose, because people can get themselves in trouble in business, but not meaningfully. And I didn't have my biological father around. The guy that I was dating, kind of seeing at the time, like, he worked for Caltrans. He didn't know anything.
Sure.
I mean, he didn't have his own business, and my sisters were already married and out of state, and I didn't have really go to. So I just kind of figured it out, and I love that I was able to do that, because it forces you to push yourself.
Love it.
And it's like there's no excuses and there's no room for failure.
And now you go do that again, and you know what to do. And it just becomes, and that's why, again, I'm a big proponent on knowledge isn't power, right? That's at our fingertips at Google.
You can just Google it.
Is the real, right?
But you have to walk it.
Right. You have to live it. You have, and that's just, life makes the rules. You open up your own business, you have your own business, things are thriving, right? They're going the way you're expecting them to go. And how long are you riding this wave?
Well, that was back in, when I started that business, I wrote it, but I didn't put it in full effect until 2006. Full effect meaning when I started my business in the salon. So what happened was I started doing the weddings and all the makeup and hair and everything, but in 2000, so I started seeing it unfold in 2006 and 2007, right before the economy had tanked.
Okay.
So I had worked up until then. I had put about, $40,000 in savings at the time. And I thought, okay, I'm either going to buy property or I'm either going to start my own salon. But when the economy had tanked, a lot of my clients were bankers and private school teachers, or they did real estate, but a lot of them in Santa Barbara had their own business. And it's a small beach town. And you either had the college students were there, or you did have families, but a lot of the women got to stay at home. But when that happened, a lot of women had to go back to work. And they also lost a lot. So a lot of the nannies weren't being given jobs. So I lost that part. Because sometimes on the weekends or the evenings, I would pick up extra work. And then I was doing all of my clientele booking and everything behind the business. So I couldn't, my business dropped about 60% within 90 days. Because that was the 2008 and that's September. And And so I'm like, oh no. And at that time, the relationship I was in wasn't working. So I moved out of my apartment, had to give that up. And the business was sliding so bad. And a lot of my clients, very vividly, one was building a home in Malibu and they couldn't even finish the construction. And she just looked at me, she's like, I can't even afford $150 to $200 a month. Because I have to go back to work and we can't finish the construction. So,
and when you're talking about, like, if a percentage of your people were in the real estate world, a lot of them were so leveraged that all of a sudden the banks closed their doors and people were just devastated. Just devastated.
This was vital. We're still hitting some portions of it. We haven't even fully recovered. So this was a hit I was never, ever prepared for.
Right.
I was just barely getting my business off ground, and I had so many plans, and all those plans had crashed. I just had to reroute. That's all.
So what'd you do?
So I called another sister friend of mine, and I had shared with her what had happened, and I wanted to keep the remaining of the clients. So when that happened in September, I went through the holidays, and then starting January, I was like, okay, let me see what kind of clients I'll have, because I want to stay in Santa Barbara and just try to ride it out.
And you were still renting a location?
Yeah.
You didn't have your own building?
No.
Okay.
That was my hope, was to maneuver that immediately. But when that happened, the year and a half later, there's nothing I could do about that. So what happened was I moved to LA because I gave up the apartment to save money, and I had that savings, and I lived off of that, about $30,000, because I didn't know what was going to happen. With my car, with my health, with everything. And then I just had to work at the same time. And I lived off of that $30,000 for 2.5 years, which is nothing.
Yeah.
I really pinched.
You did what you had to do.
It's like $12,000, $13,000 a year.
But you were still making, still making money.
I was. And then my hope was, okay, talking to my, mentor sister, like, okay, I'm either going to build it down here in LA, and then I can shift completely and then be on my own, or I'm going to need to go back to Santa Barbara once I build enough. But I couldn't afford rent at the station and living, I couldn't afford it all.
Right.
I mean, there was just too
the
many.
overhead was too much. Right?
There was so much that I couldn't. I was capping out.
Yeah.
So I just had to make vital choices. And I look back, and one thing is, I wish I had gone to school, but I don't think I could have made those sacrifices. I needed to make sure that I would keep the business alive, because then I would be jobless, careerless.
Yeah.
So
what do you mean back to school, college?
Back to college to learn another trade.
Yeah.
That some people through the economy had thought about, doing some of that.
Right.
Of course, that ran through my mind a couple times, but I love too much what I do. So.
And it's just the right thing.
Yeah.
It's just the right thing. That piece of paper on the wall, really, it's overrated. At the end of the day, in the real world, it's overrated. For most people. Not everyone, but for most. So now what's going on?
Now I'm in LA.
Right.
And I loved it. I was like, I'm in heaven.
Why?
Because it's alive. It's moving quick.
It's the city.
It's the personalities, the culture, different races. You have so much diversity. I'm learning from everybody. I have an open mind because I've always been free.
I'm a big believer life is perception, right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have been there if the economy didn't tank, right?
You bet.
You would have stayed.
I would have just stayed in Santa Barbara.
You would have never experienced that, and became that person to figure out how to survive on 30,000 in 2 years. You became that person on the other end that you wouldn't have been able to without that struggle, without that test. And that's what I want to highlight for people, because that's the gift. That's the golden nugget in this story. Like, I had a restaurant in this town. Didn't go the way I thought it was going to go, right? And people said, how did you bounce back so quickly? And I said, when it doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, and the outside people are looking and saying, it's failure, I look in the mirror and I ask myself a simple question. If I didn't do what I did and I died today, would I regret it? If my answer is yes, I won. So I love it. You would have never been in LA. You would have never been the person you are today without that struggle. So now you're in LA, you're loving life, but you're trying to figure out how to really get back monetarily, right?
Yeah. And I tell you, I when I went to LA, and I was in the Glendale area, which hit next to Burbank and then Studio City, and I thought it would be really great to find a salon. And I kid you not, it was like every week to every other week, I would go hit all these different salons, and so many salons in 2008 to 2009 were just shutting down left and right.
Even out there, huh?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Because the capacity and demand was so great. I mean, if you're in Santa Barbara, there's only 5 good salons because it's a small town. And then when you go to certain other areas, there's hundreds to compete from. But the difference is, I learned over the years, is you have to offer something different than the other person next door. So I was just wanting to pull my hair out, because everywhere I would go, there'd be I would want to start, and then I would find out that only half the salon had people in it. It's because a lot of the other ones had left. There was just a lot of inconsistency. Okay. You needed to really pay money, or you needed to pay your dues, which more so they didn't really care about the money. You had to put your hours in for union. to become a part of the union because you needed the experience and the backup and the licensing. And then while I was doing that, I was driving 3 days a week, 4 days a week, back to Santa Barbara
For your clients?
for the clients that I had left over, because that was the only income that I had at that time. So, and I had done that for probably 2.5 years.
Wow.
And, and that's how I did it. And while I was doing that, I got to meet people that would like land me an editorial situation or a photo shoot or whatnot.
Exposure,
so
some
like
sort
a
of
little
exposure.
bit more, yeah. Which I needed that. You needed to be Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo and Ventura area. They don't really offer that kind of sector. It's just a beautiful place and has so many other great opportunities, but just not in my particular field.
Right.
And I thought about maybe going to San Francisco, but I really felt like still being close to Santa Barbara enough and Ventura area, but being in LA would still be close to my roots and just like the next step.
Right, and you actually found that you loved it because it had that city feel. It had that juice.
Yeah.
So now what? How long are you in LA?
I've been in LA from that time in 2009 to since this last year. So I just barely moved to Corona area this last November.
So in that time though, you were working in LA. I mean, you found work and you started to transition from Santa Barbara to LA full time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was living life. I was going to clubs. I was doing red carpet.
Right.
I was, dating left and right, whoever I wanted, whenever I wanted.
Okay.
I was, honestly, it wasn't necessarily the happiest time of my life, but I felt like I was living my life to the fullest, and I felt like I was going to get there.
And you were in control. Right?
Yes.
So where did that start to build for you? When did you start to actually pull away from Santa Barbara?
Probably 2.5 years into it. So by 2010, I would say. I don't remember exactly. It's kind of like it got harder and harder to go to Santa Barbara because I was getting more responsibilities in LA.
You were building roots.
Yeah,
right,
I was doing my best to build the roots there to create stableness and be able to create a name and a branding.
Yep.
So as business owners do. So then I had to just, it kind of, some clients, what naturally started happening was just not considerate or a business notification. It would just be like, clients knew I was living in LA, was traveling up north. And they also, would want me to come one weekend, but I just came the weekend before, so I can't do it again, and some of that was starting to happen, and so there was a natural pull. Yeah. It was just a natural fade off.
And you were growing, and you were outgrowing that time.
And I was always so learned back from my roots in the internship program to really work in partnership with other hairdressers in the industry. So when I felt like I couldn't take care of a client, I would send them to the salons I knew best and to the other hairdressers I knew best. And that's our job.
Just collaborate.
That's a requirement that we should do.
Yeah.
Because that is also a very kind of a quiet ending, but a very, a very thought out ending. When you can't work with a client anymore, is that's your duty and that's your job, is to basically hand them over to someone who can take care of them just as well as you.
Right, and you stay in alignment. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
You just stay in alignment with who you are because you're doing the right thing for the right reasons.
Yes.
And that always wins. You're riding this wave, you're in LA, you're loving life, right? Yeah. What happened? In my internship program, I was the very first one out of 13 and probably all of Santa Barbara that was like, even when I graduated, I just felt like it was so easy for me to catch on to the techniques of the beauty industry. And I'm like, I want to learn more. I want to do more. This isn't enough. And I was the only one, that's why I was sent to LA Fashion Week, that actually learned how to do ponytail attachments and hair pieces. And we had a couple cancer patients come into the Aveda salon, and I was just like, I was a magnet. I go zoop, and I just stared into it, learned it quick, and I was like, that's me. And my mentor taught me that, and that's where he knew I had that niche. So I was helping him do hair replacement or attachments for chemo, for cancer, chemo, or just extensions, And so I just got into that, and while I was in LA is even more of a place to learn more about that. With the demand of women in the entertainment industry and changing your look all the time, like I do. So I just thought, perfect, it just happened. And when I was in LA,
I was contracted in salons, and I would kind of help them with projects and on set too. I was able to learn more about wigs, hair pieces, hair replacement, extensions of all facets, like the whole chapter of it. And I had an opportunity from, I call her my sister as well, the one that's here with me today. I had an opportunity to share a place with her and get to know her better. And she kind of took me in under her wing. And I learned a lot from her as well. And she had recommended that there was a salon in Long Beach that I could work at. And I had started to work there. And I met a gentleman that came in because I was the only hairdresser out of 35 to 42 hairdressers that could really do ethnic or black hair or do all different types of hair. He was a gentleman from Mississippi that came in, and he sat in my chair, and I just trimmed up his beard like every 5-7 days. He came in every week, and I trimmed up his beard because he was a medical consultant, and he would travel all over the country, teach doctors and work with doctors and physicians on medical plans. He sat down in my chair, and this was the pivoting moment.
Now, this was in Long Beach?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And he said, you seem like you know a lot, or that you're busy trying to know a lot, or you seem like, just the way I would work with him. And he was like, what? Like, where do you see yourself, or what do you want to do? And I don't know why he asked this question. I mean, I could ask him till this day.
Right? Yeah.
But I said, I would really love, I just feel like I've been behind the chair, I've done my thing. Although I haven't taught yet. At the time, I hadn't taught at beauty schools, and we'll get into that later. But I would really love to do more extensions and hair wigs, and more like hair replacement and sewing and gluing and attachments and just things like that. I think there's such a need for it because my mom died of cancer when I was just 3, and I was told by a lot of ladies she lost all her hair, and she wore a wig and a scarf all the time. And since she was such a beauty queen and in a nail shop, she always wanted to look good. So that was her way to get to work every day. And he said, I might have a way that I can help you. And I'm like, no.
Right.
And he just said, I have resources that can help you start a nonprofit. That will be really hard to do because you have to be really connected with the hospital and get tons of money and work full time. And if you can't work 40 to 60 hours a week and give up your job here at the salon, it's not going to work because you have to just be like in the game for a long time. I'm like, ooh. So, but I did. I went to Cedars-Sinai Hospital, and they said kind of the same thing. And I worked with investors in LA, and unfortunately, the 3 different investors, they fell through. They said that they would do, but they couldn't do. And he's been such a great angel and a great help, and he was able to give me a data dump list. And I asked for it. I said, I would love to have doctor lists of oncology and radiology from Southern California. And he said this data dump could be really specified in any kind of way that we wanted. It's just a huge data dump across the country. And when you find an investor, when you actually are working with one, I want to meet him and I want to know who they are, because I can outsource and I can figure that out for you and get the specifications of doctors you want to work with, and get the federal licensing that you need so you can work with the insurance companies and start that. So that's what I'm doing and working on now.
How far along are you?
I am probably halfway there, maybe a little bit more. I am working right now. We have a meeting next week with the medical consultant. I gave him a call last week and gave him the great news. And he is so on board. He's been on board since day one. And then I've talked to the federal government, a licensing agency out in New York, actually. He recommended them. That's how I found them. And we are in the process of actually getting that federal licensing right now. I actually was just given the form today. And they can expedite everything from 2 to 6 weeks. If I would do this process by myself, it could probably take 8 months to a year.
Right, probably.
Because I probably would miss something, and it would be back and forth and back and forth. And we want to make sure everything is really clean and legit, especially when you're working with insurance companies and helping cancer patients and changing their lives.
I love that, and it all maps back to 2 things: is making that decision, moving forward, and when you take that massive effective action, it becomes magical. And the people and the circumstances come into your life to start to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
So You're about halfway there. When do you see yourself opening doors?
It should be no later than November.
Girl.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Now, do you have a location? Do you have?
Yeah, we're working with a broker,
Okay.
and we've already looked at the location, probably 2 or 3 times now.
Yeah. All right.
So
Awesome.
my dear mentor sister that I have here with me today, she's actually a real estate agent, and she's very good at what she does. And she, every person, every deal that she has, she slams it, she kills it, and she closes it.
Girl, love it.
And she's doing 3 or 4 deals right now. She's doing really good. And she's very good at specs and details and construction and litigations and all kinds of other things. That is not my lane.
But like we talked about, right? Enhancing your weaknesses so you can run with your strengths. And that's business 101. And that's really life 101.
Yeah. You can't
love it.
Play all parts. I think, not that you're so much of a fool, but it's just kind of like you might be kidding yourself if you can handle all hats. And I used to think that way, and I punished myself for a little while for that because I was like, nope, I'm in control. I'm doing it by myself. I can do it. But the reality is you need a team.
Yeah, and the reality is, right, that you aren't great at everything, right? Mm-hmm. That's just not the way it is. And I was always taught, never step over $1 to pick up a quarter. So if you're going to try and do your books and your accounting on yourself because you're going to save money, right? Save that $300 to $1,000 a year, but now you're going to get audited and it's going to cost you $10,000.
So much more money.
And the headaches, and the time, and the nonsense, right? I mean, it's
which if you're just going to spend 3 hours doing all your numbers, you could take a client and make 500. So
right, and that's don't step over $1 to pick up a quarter. So what are you doing for work now? Where are you at? You're in Corona?
So yes, I'm in Corona. What happened was when the last investor I was working with fell through the cracks, which was a very devastating time, I did get really, really sad, and it was really hard for me to pick up the pieces. But my mentor sister was like, come down to Corona, get a fresh start. And I'm like, no, I don't know about that. But you know what? It just happened. And
oh, so that's how it happened. So the investor fell. You were in Long Beach.
I was still in LA and the Long Beach area. Like I was contracted in different assignments. Yes.
And you're just like,
what do I do?
What do you do?
Yeah.
And then, so how long have you been in Corona?
Just since November, right before Christmas. Okay. So, and honestly, it has to do a little bit with age, I guess. But I'm going to be 40 on July 15th, and I'm like, oh my gosh, LA killed me. I mean, I love LA, but it's ruthless, and it's awesome if you're prepared, if you're with the right situation and the right people, but it's not always for everybody at every part of their life.
Yeah. Yeah,
so like,
makes a lot of sense.
I'm like, I'm getting a little older. I want to calm down a little bit. Like, I just wanted to be around more serious and seasoned people that, you know, I just feel like the Inland Empire or just certain parts outside of LA are a place where people are family oriented and that they have their own business from home, or that they move away from LA just for that reason.
And everything that you're going to have to put into this new venture, it's going to get everything that you have, everything that you have in you, right?
Yeah.
Down to your soul in order to make this happen. Yeah. The less distractions, the more focus.
That's the big part too. Yeah. I just want to be like in a quiet area, focused where the people believe in me and make those things happen, to also trickle off of them too, you know, so they see the good effects and they get the benefits and everybody's happy, and it's just, you know, it's just better that way. I don't want to be too far away and then constantly going back and forth, and no.
I love it.
I already did all that.
Right, but one of the things here that people have to understand is you're listening to that inner GPS, you're listening to that intuition, knowing that this is what you need to do in order to take that next step, and that's an important part that a lot of people miss, right? Because they're not listening. When you don't listen to it and you look back, you're like, man, why didn't I, right? Yeah. But when you listen to that inner GPS, it's gonna take you there every single time, even though it might not look like the right road in the beginning, right?
It really didn't.
If you follow it through.
But I had her and this investor that I'm working with, who she's very dear friends with and close to, they saw me for me. And I'm so grateful for that, because if they didn't see me for me, they wouldn't see my potential. And I look back and I'm just so grateful that, you know, she encouraged me to make that move, because people, it's very hard to have partnerships or colleagues or in the business world people working together because they always have like all these differences and really hard times. But they were able to see the struggle and the frustration because all I was trying to do is get to one place for like 5-6 years now. And so when they saw that, when both of them saw that, they're like, that's crazy that there's so much money to be made because at the end of the day, it's business. But at the same time, I have the ability and the talent to run different parts of the business and to be able to help people. Yeah. And that was the whole motive, is to change women's lives, to give them back their dignity. Because I know that for my mom, it was really hard for her. And if we can give women a reason to stay in their relationships, spend time with their family, spend time with their children, go back to work in the work field, go back to school, do what they need to do too, to contribute and have their soul, their dignity back, then that's what I want to do. So that gives me my purpose.
I talk about this all the time, and people overlook it, but it's everything. It's the epicenter. It's your why.
Yeah.
And when your why becomes bigger than you, you become unstoppable. You become bulletproof, and you're living proof, right, that when you keep taking that action, the people and the circumstances come in to make it happen. And the coolest thing is when you look back in your life, right, there's times that you're like, the greatest Hollywood screenwriters couldn't write this shit, right? It's what it happens, right? When you think about it.
My book is coming, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, talk about that.
But it'll be about 3 years.
Okay. So you write a book?
I actually have like jotting down journals about, I wanted to write a book about my life and the purpose of where my life took me and the adventures I went through as a young woman, as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Because I think women as an entrepreneur, it can relate to with cancer patients and doing the whole chapter. And I have
if you want, just keep setting the seat. I have a kick-ass publisher, so if you need to connect,
well, hey.
I'll put you in touch with Kelly. She's badass.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I like to work with badass people.
She's badass. So this wouldn't have happened without her. That's for sure. You got a lot of good, cool things coming up on the horizon, right? And
it's going to be ever-changing. I know it's going to be challenging, but that's the thing that I said at the very beginning. I think you need to make sure you try your very best to surround yourself around good people. For everybody to be successful and to do their best to be on the same page and to see, the next 6 months to a year, and then from there it'll flow. For them to be able to have that vision and see that, and it's only going to help everybody else in so many ways and free up things. Help them be with their families more, and even people that are in the partnership of the business. It's like, the thing is, if I was doing this just for me, I would still be so unhappy. It's not just for me.
No.
It's for the people that I love the most that are close to me.
Yeah. So that means the why is big enough.
Yeah.
That a girl. Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. So we end the show the same way every time. Okay. And I'm a firm believer that we can only be in one state of mind at a time. So that means if you're in victim state, at that moment, there's no room for gratitude. There's no room for anything else. But if you can be in that unstoppable state, right, at that moment, there's no room for anything else. And I'm a big believer that you don't make the rules, I don't make the rules. Life makes the rules.
Yeah.
And life is asking you right now, brother, if you could live your life, run like a lion or purring like a kitten, what would you do?
I would want to travel the world and see everything and talk to everybody and be able to change a lot of things.
So that means you want to roar like a lion. So we're going to take this out Monster Motivator style. And it's the Monster Motivator roar. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Ah! That a girl. Way to kill it.